Thank you for joining us. In this video we will dive into the history of one of the most famous warships ever built, and a ship that captured the imagination of generations. She was beauty wrapped in steel, power shaped into elegant lines, and a warship that became a symbol of a nation. And for more than 20 years, she stood as the pride of the Royal Navy, the face of British sea power, and the most recognized warship on Earth. This is the story of the mighty HMS Hood. During the 1920s, HMS Hood was everywhere. She was the flagship of the battle cruiser squadron. She took part in fleet reviews, foreign visits, and international demonstrations of British strength and power. Her greatest journey came in 1923 and 1924, during the Empire Cruise. She sailed with the battlecruiser HMS Repulse and a flotilla of smaller ships across the globe. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, India, and many more ports welcomed her mighty presence. Thousands of people lined harbors just to see Britain's mighty ship pass. For many, HMS Hood was their first glimpse of naval power. Newspapers called her the Mighty Hood. School children learned her name. She became a legend long before she even fired a shot in anger. But as the years went by, new ships appeared across Europe. They carried heavier deck armor, stronger belts, and more advanced fire control. Hood's own modernization, planned several times, was always delayed. Economic problems, budget cuts, political hesitation, and finally war. But by 1939, HMS Hood was still magnificent. Yet she was no longer young. Then came word of a new German giant. A ship that would challenge every British battleship afloat. Her name was Bismarck. Many believed that Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, would be more than a match for this new German ship. After all, she carried 2 decades of experience, global deployments, and the reputation of a ship that had represented British power in every ocean. To the public, Hood was the unbeatable champion of the fleet. A veteran, a legend, and a ship whose name alone seemed to guarantee victory. But the reality was different. Inside the Admiralty, the truth was far more complicated. Hood had never received the full modernization that planners had intended. Her horizontal armor, once adequate in the First World War era, was now dangerously thin against long-range plunging fire. And something else, known well to sailors but almost invisible to the outside world, added to her vulnerability. Hood was a wet ship. Her long, elegant bow rode very low in the water, and in heavy seas the entire forecastle vanished under sheets of breaking waves. This harsh truth was common knowledge among crews who served aboard, but it was rarely understood by the public who saw only her size and speed. To most people, HMS Hood was simply the biggest and the best. So when the news spread that she had sailed to intercept Bismarck, confidence was high. Many believed the outcome was obvious. The mighty Hood, the undefeated greyhound of the Empire, would once again dominate any challenger placed before her. But naval warfare had changed. In January 1941, Captain Ralph Kerr took command of HMS Hood. He was an experienced, calm, and deeply respected captain. He had served on destroyers, cruisers, and capital ships, and he understood naval warfare. And he also understood Hood. He knew her strengths, and he knew her flaws. Most importantly, he knew that if Hood ever faced Bismarck, Hood's deck armor could not withstand plunging fire from modern 15-inch guns at long range. And he knew she needed to close the distance quickly in any modern battle. Yet he also knew his duty, because HMS Hood was not just another ship, she was a symbol of the nation, and to command her was an honor few officers would ever know. Above Kerr stood Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland, the officer commanding the squadron. Holland was professional and methodical. He had studied German naval design for years, and understood the threat posed by the Bismarck. He too believed that if Hood and Bismarck met, Hood would need to close the range quickly. At short range, Bismarck's shells would strike more horizontally, and Hood's belt armor could maybe hold. At long range, her deck armor was too thin to survive. On the German side stood Captain Ernst Lindemann. He was a career officer, respected by his crew for his professionalism and fairness. He believed in his ship. Bismarck was new, modern, and heavily armored. She carried 8 15-inch guns with advanced fire control. Lindemann was not a political man. He once argued with Nazi officials aboard his ship, insisting that Bismarck was a warship and not a political stage. He intended to command as a sailor, not a propaganda symbol. He knew Hood's reputation, and he respected it deeply, but he also believed in Bismarck. In May 1941, Bismarck and the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen prepared to break into the Atlantic and destroy Allied shipping. If they succeeded, Britain would face a crisis. British food and supplies depended on convoys. A single powerful German battleship could cause chaos. British intelligence quickly detected the breakout. Every major British warship in the North Atlantic was ordered to sea. Hood and the brand-new battleship Prince of Wales were sent north to intercept. Prince of Wales was strong but unfinished. Her crew was inexperienced and her guns still had mechanical problems. She was not yet ready for a major battle, but she had to go. With HMS Hood leading and HMS Prince of Wales behind, the British began their pursuit. On the morning of May 24, just at dawn, the British sighted the German ships in the Denmark Strait. HMS Hood and Prince of Wales responded. The sea was cold and the air was misty. Hood and Prince of Wales approached at high speed. Holland ordered the ships to close the distance quickly to avoid long-range fire. But as they closed in, the British misidentified the target. They believed that Prinz Eugen was the Bismarck. And as a result, Hood's first salvos were aimed at the wrong ship. Prinz Eugen responded quickly, firing at Hood and scoring early hits. One shell struck her boat deck, causing fires that filled the stern with smoke. Holland pressed forward. He ordered a turn to bring Hood's rear turrets into action. It was during this maneuver that fate would strike. At 6 a.m., a German shell fired from the Bismarck found its target. It struck HMS Hood amidship and plunged deep through her deck armor, and in a fraction of a second it reached the aft magazine. The explosion was instantaneous and catastrophic. Hood's rear turrets were blown skyward. A column of flame and smoke shot hundreds of feet into the air. The force tore through the ship's structure, splitting her in two. In less than 3 minutes, the pride of the Royal Navy was gone. Historians have long debated the exact mechanics of the explosion. Some argue the shell penetrated directly into the aft magazine, detonating the stored cordite and shells. Others suggest it may have triggered a flash fire along the handling rooms that led to the magazine. What is certain is the result. Hood's enormous strength and legendary speed could not protect her from this single, precise blow. The news reached Britain within hours, shock spread across the Admiralty and disbelief filled the streets of London. Her destruction felt almost impossible. For decades, Hood's final resting place remained unknown. Then in 2001, marine archaeologist David Mearns located the wreck. Her bow and stern lay apart. The midsection was blown to pieces, and this confirmed the incredible violence of the explosion. Ted Briggs, one of the 3 survivors, visited the site many years later. He looked out at the sea that had taken so many of his friends, his voice shaking with emotion. She was not just a ship, she was our home. Today, the Hood Association preserves her memory. And her story remains one of the most famous in naval history. She was strength and elegance, she was power and grace, she was the embodiment of a nation that once ruled the waves. But Hood's legacy lives on in memorials and in the hearts of the families who remember her. In the history of the sea, where her name still shines bright. The mighty Hood. A ship of glory, a ship of tragedy, a ship that will never be forgotten. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.